So my name is Celia Breaker, and I'm part of the UWBI Central team here in Madison. I also have Robert Flum. He will be monitoring the chat and assisting. He is my supervisor, and he's also down here in Madison on the BI Central team. And we manage a lot of the BI communications, outreach, training, and strategy. Today, we're going to be covering the portion of reviewing security, roles and responsibilities, as well as resources that are available to you specifically as HR users. Then we're going to transition into Mary, and I think she's muted right now. She can.
Yes, hi, I'm Mary Kirk, and I'm part of the HR analytics and reporting team for UWBI. And I work closely with Brad and Miguel, and I guess if they're online, they can introduce themselves as well.
I might not be here yet.
Okay, well,
But yeah, so Mary's going to be covering the basic HRS dashboard navigation, some subject area overview, as well as going through some popular or common shared queries, reports, dashboard overview, and then also a demo. So she's going to get into the system and show you folks around. And there'll be plenty of time, hopefully, for Q&A at the end as well. So as we go through training today, notice that, oh, it looks like Miguel is here, but he's unable to unmute. We have to change the settings. I can leave that to Robert. So today, as we're going through the system, you're going to notice that Mary is going to be showing some different reports, dashboards, and with that, you're going to be viewing it as a consumer. So hopefully all of you are consumers. If you have access to BI, you're considered a BI consumer. So you'll have automatic access to shared queries, dashboards, reports, and it is criteria based. So you could have a role that might be benefits or payroll to see certain data and dashboards. You can view, filter, run, and print reports of data to existing analyses and dashboards, and you can also run or schedule existing BI publisher reports. I have not create because as an author, you're able to create that. However, today we're going to just be going through the consumer. As far as access and security, you're going to notice that some of the column headers might be navy, and that just indicates that that data is sensitive data. We're not going to be showing any sensitive data today. However, just to be aware of what sensitive data is in OB, you can see it's race, ethnicity, birth date, location of birth, age, gender, marital status, military status, and so on. I won't read the whole list there. So all of that data is available in our UWBI tool. The one thing you're never going to see in our tool is restricted data, and that's considered social security numbers or financial account numbers or banking information. For HR specific access and security, we do have some great resources on our website, which is www.wisconsin.edu/BI. And on there, we have a resources tab. You can go in there. There's getting started with HRS, and it goes through the steps. But at a high level view, basically you go through our Oracle Identity Management System, OIM, and you acquire roles through there. So you could have a role that's non-sensitive. You could have a sensitive role where you'll see the sensitive data that I just showed you on that previous slide. You could have a benefits only role. That's where you would request those roles. And then any questions before we transition over to Mary to cover our subject areas? There is a chat box located in the lower right hand if you want to go ahead and enter those. Questions on if you're the only one here. So with WebEx events, it must be a security thing where you only can see the panelists that are presenting as well as just yourself. We do actually have a lot of attendees on today. So about 158 so far. The website The website, I can go ahead and type it in the chat box as well. We also do have a slide on that later on. All right, Mary, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Celia. If you want to show the next slide. So part of this presentation is just reflecting to you the various subject areas that we have in OB. And these subject areas, with them, we've written pre-written dashboards and reports that reflect the data from each of these subject areas. So this data comes from EPM, which is HRS's data warehouse. On a nightly basis, data entered into HRS is loaded through batch processes into EPM, the data warehouse. So the reports that you're seeing in UWBI, for the most part, reflect data that is 1 day old. So during this nightly batch process, data is organized into fact and dimension tables, and that's what we use in the dashboards and reports that you see in OB. So when these next few slides, you're going to see the subject areas. You'll also see the security that's assigned to each one of these subject areas. So for the most part, we're looking at the consumer role at this point. It would be HR non-sensitive, HR sensitive, or BN sensitive would be the types of security that you would need to have to see some of the dashboards and reports. So on this first slide, it's reflecting the absence balance area. This area provides data on employee leave balances by leave type for each pay period. The absence event subject area reflects employee absences by day and type of absence. The absence leave taken reflects detail and summary reports on leave taken, including leave with and without pay. The benefits WRS accumulator reflects WRS eligible hours and earnings for each pay period for employees covered by WRS. The benefits enrollment star lists all the benefits and the status of the benefits enrollment for employees. And the information on this slide refers to info access data. Info access was the data warehouse used prior to HRS go live, which was in April 2011. Some of that information we were able to organize into the HRS data in EPM. So it's seamless. You won't really know that it's coming or that it was legacy data. However, the leave data was too complicated to try to incorporate with HRS data. So instead, we created subject areas and just brought that data in as it is. So all the areas you see on this slide reflect info access data or prior to HRS go live in April 2011. And it's for either classified leave or unclassified leave. And on this slide, again, there at the top, you're seeing an info access leave subject area. But underneath that, you'll see the UWHRS job funding. That subject area provides HRS funding history for an employee's job. And then we'll get into the payroll area. There's the job paycheck subject area that reflects employee paycheck information for each confirmed payroll. The payroll balances consolidated subject area provides employee earning, deduction, and tax balances for a given confirmed time frame or payroll. The payroll distributions consolidated reflects employee earnings, deductions, and taxes distributed for a given time frame or payroll. And the payroll, again, payroll info access, this is more payroll and tax information. And again, it's info access data or data prior to April 2011. Next, we've got the payroll work study subject area. This provides the work study award and earnings information for students who hold work study jobs. The payroll by pay period provides payroll information for employees by a specific run ID. It includes payrolls that are in calc status as well as confirmed status. The time and labor subject area reflects, again, the time and labor information for employees who report time and labor. This includes payroll approvers and reports to backup approvers, payroll coordinators. And the workforce subject area reflects the HRS job information and the characteristics of a job, including all the effective dated rows that you would see for a job. And the last two subject areas that are available for consumers is the March Job Snapshot. That is a snapshot of job data that is populated each year in March, on a specific date in March. And this data exists for each reporting year since 2012. And similarly, we have the October job snapshot. So it's similar to the March, except it's run in October. So at a specific time in October, it's characteristics or a snapshot of all jobs at that time. And again, it goes back to 2012. This slide is just reflecting the fairly new dashboards that we have placed into the UWHRS, UWBI OB system. The Furlough Dashboards are all fairly new. Included in that are payroll, dashboards for payroll. This provides furlough earnings codes and details for employees from the payroll subject area specific to furlough. The time and labor furlough dashboards provide time and labor details from that subject area that are related to furlough. Workforce provides the furlough workforce details from that subject area. The Efmla provides emergency leave details specific to furlough from the workforce and payroll subject areas. And then we have a new COVID-19 and furlough cost savings dashboards. And also, in addition to that, one that's broken out by fund. And I'll be showing, during the demo, I'll be focusing more on these dashboards, but we will walk through each subject area and perhaps show one or two summarized dashboards. And coming soon, we have the monthly active job metrics dashboard. This is a new subject area, the monthly active job subject area. This subject area reflects one row per HR active job as of the first of each month, going back 5 years. Hopefully this subject area will facilitate the ability to review point-in-time measures, such as month-over-month and year-over-year analytics of employment data. And that's currently being tested by our UW Shared Services folks. Okay, I think we're ready to go to the demo, and I am going to hopefully share content. Although
I'm going to make you a presenter here.
Yeah, I'll need you to do that.
Hopefully, let's see here.
I think. Okay, there we go. So Celia, can you see my screen?
Yep, I see the landing page there. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so I've logged into UWBI. I'm in production, and I'm at the UWBI landing page. So in order to, as you can see, there's landing pages for each of the campuses. I'm going to go into the human resources landing page. So as you can see, all the subject areas that I talked about earlier, dashboards have been pre-written with reports, etc., based on different subject areas. I'm going to walk through each one of these. I'll go into the view dashboards and we'll perhaps show some dashboards that reflect summarize data, but I won't be showing any dashboards that reflect individual employees themselves. There's a list of all of these reports available at the UWBI homepage that you can access. So let's first of all look at the absence dashboards that we have in production. As you can see, there's a variety of dashboards in this subject area. Absences information, carryover vacation and comp time. Let's just quickly look at one of these. I'll open up this one. There is an aggregate. You can see across the top there are tabs, and they hopefully are named appropriately enough that you can understand what type of data you'd be getting out of it. Each one of our dashboards have the similar look and feel of prompts at the top. And you'll always, perhaps on all of our dashboards, see something called business unit, where if you select the drop-down list, you would see your campus, division. Depending upon the business unit you select, it should just display the divisions for your campus, department codes, and sub-department codes. There's an EMPL class drop down for this dashboard, as well as pay period begin and end dates. If you see these little asterisks in front of a prompt, that means that it's a required field. You can't leave it null when you run this. So for now, perhaps I'll just run this aggregate tab just so you can get an idea of what I'm doing here. And I was into it too early, and it wants to run it for all campuses, which is probably something I don't want to do. I'll choose UW-Madison, and I'm going to type in my sub-department. Hit apply, and it returns to me some aggregate charts here. So it's showing me for the people in this sub-department, what are the vacation carryover, number of employees and hours, depending on the payroll type, the business unit, or the EMPL class code.
Hey,
and then
Mary,
each one, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you able
Sure.
to enlarge your screen a bit? Just so folks can see a little bit better.
Gosh, I think it's as large as I can get it. Let me just try one thing here.
Maybe like a browser zoom or something.
How's that? Is that better?
That's better. Yep, they said it's better. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So I need to, there, get rid of that. So anyway, and at any time, if you want to rerun a dashboard for the prompts at the top, it's always best for you to reset to default values prior to entering in new values and then hitting the apply button. Okay, so that's just kind of a high level of a basic on how you would run a dashboard. And I think I was going to explain that we always have a print and export feature here where you can export it to various PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, CSV file, whatever you need to export it to. Okay, so I'm going to navigate back. Again, I would take some time just to walk through each one of these reports if you have time, just to see what type of data you would get out of it. And of course, a lot of these reports are employee or job-based reports, so you will see specific data for an employee. That's why I'm not running most of these. So I'm going to navigate back to the UWBI landing page, and let's take a quick look at the benefits dashboards. In here, we just have 3 dashboards: academic staff hours and WRS benefits, benefits breakdown, and benefit plan enrollments. Now, in order to see these dashboards, you'd need to have the benefits sensitive role. I'm going to take a quick look at the benefit plan enrollments dashboard. And again, I was in here earlier, and it wants to run it for everybody. I'm going to stop that. So I am going to select, let's choose Madison. So you'll notice all the prompts at the top again. Plan type, I'm just going to say vision. I want to see who has vision insurance or the aggregate data for it. You won't see employee data here. And again, the as of date is required. And I'm going to say anybody who's elected that type of insurance. And then it just returns counts for me, head counts, and the type of benefit program that they by benefit program. And there's also a graph associated with it. Now, anytime we have a dashboard like this, for the most part, we have in the head count area or job count area, if it's a blue color and you can highlight it and it's underlined, you can click on that number, excuse me, and it should take you to the job detail or the benefit detail for that specific employee. So that's benefits data. And again, there's different tabs at the top that you can select, you know, that are specific to that subject area or that report that may show you different data. Okay, let's go back to the UWBI landing page. The next tile for specific data is the compensation dashboards. Let's take a look at that. There's only one dashboard in there. That's our salary equity dashboard. A lot of times people run this one, perhaps by job code because they're making a hire and they want to see the total number of employees that have that job code, perhaps what the minimum, average, maximum salaries are. So let's run this one for job code 13374. If you want to see what the title is the IS Systems Development Services Consultant Administrator job code. So I'm going to apply that one. And you'll see that there's 22 employees at Madison that have that job code, and then it shows you their annualized salary based on minimums, maximums, averages, medians, and standard deviation. And system-wide has one, and Parkside has one. So this is a commonly used dashboard. Again, you can see this information by employee if you click on the 22. The number under employee count, or there's also tabs at the top that show you this data in different slices and dices. And I will navigate back to the next tile, which is the demographics dashboard. This dashboard contains information about diversity, data from the incumbency report that hasn't been out here too long, and missing job groups. Let's take a quick look at the diversity report. Let's see, let's run this one. For the most part, except for the details tab, this one is strictly showing you information that's summarized. So let's run this for Green Bay. And you're presented with charts and graphics that show various slices and dices of this information by job subfunction, by the US Social Code, and then the combined one. And then if you scroll down, you can see counts by different ethnicities, and then bringing in the social code as well. And you can see this view selector is a commonly used item on some of our dashboards if we just want to change the demographic type, for example, to gender. Then it would reflect counts based on gender, etc.
So Mary, quick question from the chat here. Is it possible to view a list of dashboards that they have given access to? They're able to view some dashboards, but do not have a view report button.
So meaning they don't have the selector here?
I believe it's from the previous example that you had to view the
Okay.
reports.
I can talk about it.
Okay. Miguel, do you want to?
No, yeah,
jump
the
in?
only thing is there is three roles, as Mary mentioned at the beginning: sensitive, non-sensitive, and benefits. At least everybody gets at least one of those. So if you get the benefits, that allows you to see the benefits. If you get one of the others, you get access to all reports. The only thing is, if you get the non-sensitive, you will not see certain fields in the reports. For example, you will not see data of birth. You will not see like home address if you don't have the sensitive. But basically, everybody has access to everything except the benefits. The benefits are the only thing that has a separate role. Everybody else gets either the sensitive or the non-sensitive, which means you get access to everything, but depending on which one of those two roles you got, you may not see all the fields. But
Right.
other than that, everybody gets access to everything.
Right. And I think in addition to that, if we're talking about, we go back and look at the tiles, for example. If you don't see view dashboards here, that might be what you're talking about. You don't have the benefits sensitive role. You can't get to that area. So that's an additional security that's been provided in OBI. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay,
I
so
think
she said she has a view dashboard button, but no reports when she goes into the benefits.
okay, so
So
that means that she doesn't have the benefits sensitive role. She can't get to any of those dashboards without that role.
yeah, and sometimes they leave that view dashboard button there just so that you can get in and see what type of
What's
reports
available,
are
right?
available. Yep, so that way you can request that role if that's something that you need access to.
Right. Hey.
Let me add one thing to that, just to make sure everybody understands. Sometimes people call us to say, oh, can we get access to this? And we don't give access, we don't give the roles, the team. Each role is granted by the campus, each campus. So if you need a role, you made a request through OIM, and it's your campus data custodian who will approve it. And it's an automatic process that it doesn't require manual intervention. Once the roles is approved, then you get access to whatever the role allows you to do. But the who decides who gets access to what is decided in each campus. I just wanted to mention that for the people to be aware.
Are there any other questions in this is regarding security access?
Mary, if you want to just quickly go to your profile and top right to show where they can view the roles that they have.
Oh, sure. So right now, if I clicked on, if you look up at the top of the screen here, you're going to see mfkirk at wisc.edu on your screen. You would see your credentials, your login credentials. If I choose my account under that, and then scroll over here to the application roles tab, this is where you're going to see the type of access that you have. Now, you're not going to see everything that I've got on here. I've got more of kind of like a super user access. The roles that Miguel was referring to will look something like one of these two here. So this is the benefit sensitive role that's highlighted. And this one is the HR sensitive role that's highlighted. The other role that's available for a consumer is the HR non-sensitive role. So you would see an NS here at the end. And that's where you can see the type of role that you currently have today. And if for some reason you have a role then and you are not seeing something, please let us know if you expect to be seeing something. Does that help? Okay. I will move on then with the different subject areas and the dashboards that are available. The next one that I want to focus on are the furlough dashboards. So these are ones that are fairly recent. They've been organized into different areas here when you access the home page or the page for furlough reporting. The first one is the time and labor furlough reports. So this one has, again, various tabs at the top. The furlough detail one is going to list, for whatever prompts you enter, the employees and their actual time and labor furlough entry. You know, the time codes that are being reflected are the furlough time codes. And then, of course, you need to enter a time frame for that. I won't run this one because it does reflect specific employee data. There's also a special one that we just added called the furlough detail absence. There are employees who enter, rather than entering in time and labor, they just enter their absence or their furlough absence in the absence area, and it's called COVID furlough. For the most part, people that are entering their data in absence, it's automatically, there's something that runs that also incorporates that data into the time and labor area. But there are certain employees where that doesn't happen. And so this dashboard and report would reflect those employees who only have the data in the absence area, the COVID furlough reporting. This next tab is going to reflect data for people who haven't reported any furlough in time and labor for a specific time frame. And again, some of the data that you get back on this report, we can't determine employees that are exempt from furlough. So you may see a lot of student help or employee types that are exempt from furlough, but because each campus has their own how they implemented this, there's just no way we can only show employees who should be taking it but haven't. And then there's the furlough summary for time and labor. And I can run this one because it is a summarized dashboard. I'm going to change this date, however, to 10/30/2020 and hit apply. And I'm running it for all campuses, so it might take a couple seconds to complete here. But this should be reflecting the summary data for time and labor. And maybe I shouldn't have run it for all campuses. What I can always do when something is taking a long time is open up another session of OB and move along. We can go back to that one to see the data. The next section in the furlough reports is the workforce furlough reports area. Again, this one is reflecting furlough reporting, but based on job data. So in the workforce area or the job data area, you're entering in specific codes for each employee that's taking furlough. So this would reflect the details as far as job data is concerned about whatever furlough reporting codes you have given for that employee. Again, we've got a tab that will indicate those employees who don't have job furlough rows. And again, there might be employee data there that isn't applicable because they're exempt, but it's just a way for you to see who hasn't, which employees do not have the job furlough actions entered for them. This next tab reflects people who have time and labor furlough. So this is an interesting one. But there has been no job furlough rows entered for these people. So this is kind of a report you're going to want to run to make sure that the job furlough data has been entered. And then a specific report that just contains the specific type of furlough actions for employees. So these are all detail rows. I won't be running any of these. I forgot to mention earlier that we always have a notes page on our all of our dashboards, and you can read through this to see exactly what type of information is being reflected in the output. So for an example, in the job reporting furlough, you'll see the specific action reason codes that we're using to actually run this or to actually create the analysis and the hard-coded filters for it. So if you have a question on any specific dashboard, you probably always want to take a look at that notes page to see, to make sure you understand what it's reflecting. I'm going to go back to this one, just to make sure that it did complete. So this is showing summarized data as far as by month and by time code at the top. And then you'll see by campus the number of employees and the number of hours, with totals at the end, as you know, to the right for each campus as well as at the bottom. Okay. The next specific furlough related area is the payroll area. And again, this is going to show you detailed information by employee for specific earning codes that are furlough related. I'll just show you the drop down here so you can see the various types of furlough codes that you'll see that are run through payroll for biweekly and monthly. And the last dashboards in this area is the Efmla. So this one, get to it here, again has a lot of tabs at the top. So this reflects, go to the notes page just so you can see. So it reflects the emergency Efmla furlough detail created through the workforce and HRS job actions. And there's also one that reflects the payroll details. Are there any questions, specific questions on this group of reports at this point? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go back to the home page, the UWBI home page, and let's continue walking through the rest of the various subject area dashboards, just at a high level. So we have payroll dashboards that are specific to payroll. For the most part, these are all returning employee-specific data, looking at the various reports coming out, deduction comparison, biweekly overtime hours, employee hours worked. There's a monthly edit. The payroll and deductions is for a specific employee. There's work study reports and employer share deductions by fund. We can take a quick look at the overview report for payroll. And I think I'll just run this one for, just so you can see some output. I'll run it for my division, A06, and I'll run it from the first of the year through today, or actually, you know, this is a day old data, so it's not going to be up to date as of right now. And I believe, yes, this report reflects a variety of different graphs. This first one that completed is showing number of employees who received checks, the total payroll, This graph down here, even though I entered it just for a time frame, is just reflecting for my division the total payroll by year. And then you'll see the total payroll by each month for this year for Division A06. So this is just more of a graphical dashboard that's been created. It has similar capabilities. If you see I'm hovering over this graph, if I clicked on it, it would take me to actual detail for this graph that I'm clicking on. So you would see the actual employee detail for that. But it also gives you, when you hover over it, a high level detail of what that total payroll is for calendar year 2020. So those are the payroll reports. And like I said, for the most part, they're employee specific. So I would take some time if I were you to just, peruse through them and see which ones you would be of most benefit to you.
So Mary, quick question. Can you show there's a few different ways to navigate while you're logged in? So one of them, you were using the back arrow in the browser. Some reports, nice little button under the header in the top left-hand corner. And then there's also that breadcrumb trail. Are you able to point those out really quickly? Some folks are having trouble seeing how you moved and navigating in between.
Sure. So for the most part, I'll go back to maybe one of the furlough ones here. Or actually, perhaps this one's already open. So for the most part, I always, you use this. There should always be on all of the screens this return to something homepage. You would click on that to navigate back. You will see now it's not on this one, but if you click on perhaps if you're on a page where you can click into a drill. So for example, because I can't drill into anything, I can't show you what that looks like. But if I clicked on this 3 and it took me to another page that shows me the detail, at the bottom, and it's not showing on this screen, but at the bottom you'll see various navigation features, and one of them is return. And you would click on the return to take you back to this page. Unfortunately, because I can't drill into anything to show you the detail, I can't show you what that looks like. Does that make sense, Celia?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just that the quickly navigating back and forth between different dashboards, so a dashboard within a dashboard, and then also going back to that main page. We also
Right.
do have like the global header across the top that you can navigate. So I think that was helpful. And I did have one more question on here in regards to a specific report. So Angela was wondering which one is the report to a university temp or formerly LTE has worked. Did I say that right? Did that make sense?
So LTE hours, right?
Yep. University temp
Okay.
or formerly LTE hours has worked.
So there's a couple of different reports that you can run. There's employee hours worked. So this one doesn't have the actual EMPL ID on it. I was thinking it did. But if you ran this one, for whatever department this employee was in, as well as maybe the EMPL class, and just choose, let's see, there should be university staff temporary employment, and then the time frame, because this, hopefully, I'm fairly certain this one, if you ran it for a specific department and EMPL class and put in your pay end dates going back to how far, when did this employee start working? Even though they're termed now, it should bring back hours based upon the time frame that you entered. I know for a fact that the payroll and deductions report is by EMPL ID. So this should list the hours on the payroll tab that were used for each payroll. In the run ID area, you're going to want to go back, of course, and select, going as far back as what you think the employee worked for that specific EMPL ID. And in addition to the hours, you will get the payroll amount, but the hours would be included on that. We do have, though, I think if you're talking about the LTE, there's a specific LTE dashboard that's created that's in the workforce area, I believe. Where is it?
Right there, Mary, is LTE monitoring. Go be better down to the left. Right there.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Miguel. So this might be the one that you're interested in. So for a specific EMPL ID, it will give to you all the data associated with that EMPL ID, as far as, whether or not they were coming close to their hour limit. Down in the inactive part is where you'll see all the hours for that LTE, all the hours they accumulated for that EMPL ID for inactive LTE jobs. Does that make sense? If they are currently active, you'll see the active data at the top. But then the bottom part will show you all the hours that they worked for inactive temp jobs, LTE jobs. So that might be the one you're referring to.
Yep, she said yes, very helpful, thank you.
Great.
And then I have another one here. Can you point out where the absence balance report you spoke of at the beginning, where you can see leave by pay period?
Sure. So leave taken by pay period, right? Leave usage and balance. So, I mean, I could run this for myself if you want to see how it looks. Miguel, what's your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was unmuting. Yes, if you want to show your data, that's okay. I don't want to show anyone else, but you can show your data.
Right, and I'm not sure. I mean, you can run this for a specific, obviously you need to enter a begin and end date on this. It's not really by a run ID that you run this. So even if let's just say I want to run this, I'll run it for the beginning of the year through today, it will be reflected for me kind of by a pay period type. So you can see here what my the leave type, the specific time frame that this was available for me. So it has available balance, beginning earned balance, earned, used, adjusted, ending earned balance, and allocations. And if I scroll down, you can see that the data is reflected and it changes over time for past reporting periods. I guess I did forget to mention that at the bottom here, you're presented with typically multiple screens when you run it for a specific employee or a large set of data. And you just need to scroll through them like this to get to the bottom, or you can choose this double arrow that'll take you automatically to the bottom. And most of our reports also have here at the bottom the logic that was used to create this report. So does that answer your question as far as which report you would run to see?
Yeah, they said great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on the dash or the subject area dashboards that we've gone through so far? Okay, let's move on then. We kind of looked at some of the payroll dashboards. Let's look at the time and labor area. This one includes a biweekly payroll edit check sheet, standard versus approved hours, And it also includes time approver information, time and labor schedule, COVID leave usage and leave balances. And again, this is for the specific people that used COVID leave. I believe this is detailed data, so I will not run it. Or is it? Oh no, I see the actuals is actually this information is summarized. So this one is more of an executive summary showing the COVID leave usage. The first one is by payroll type. So you can see since March, the number of employees, biweekly employees system-wide, because I ran it for all campuses that have used COVID leave, and the number of hours that were used. There's a biweekly and a monthly total. There's also a graph that reflects, or a pivot table that reflects by EMPL class, the number of employees and hours used. And then there's also a pivot table that reflects the by business unit and payroll type, the number of employees and hours used. And then across at the top, you'll see different tabs that you can run to see this similar type of data, as well as a detail tab. Okay. And there's the COVID leave balance. And this one is actually detail. So I won't run this one, but it does reflect the last, if you check this, the last balance row of the COVID leave for each employee. And I'll navigate back. The next area that we'll look at are the workforce dashboards. There's a lot of reports in this area. So I would recommend, kind of taking a look at what's here, what might be beneficial for your job. Commonly used reports are the current employees and jobs report that reflects job details on currently active employees. There's a couple of academic staff reports, the ACA student hours over 25. There's employment visa report, faculty sabbaticals, first hire dates and years of service. HR data will give you, it includes mostly a lot of sensitive data if you have that type of access. HR transactions lists for whatever your parameters are, all of the job, all job rows for whatever your data request is, with all effective dated rows. I-9 information, jobs for a given date range, based on your parameters will list at a specific point in time what your job data looked like on that date or time frame. Job history is a very commonly used report, and I can run this for myself just to give you an idea of what's reflected here. So this first screen is just showing the max effective dated row for each job. And here you can see a good reflection of how we incorporated old info access data into the HRS data. So you can see a complete, over time, the different jobs that I've held, even though some of them are pretty old, going back to 1998. Now this only reflects data that certainly from info access that was entered. I actually have jobs prior to that, but because it probably is just reflected on paper or microfiche for those jobs.
So Mary, there's a couple questions here.
Sure.
So is there a report that shows the funding string for a position?
For a position, not a job, but for a position. I don't think we have anything that shows for a position. Do we? Brad and Miguel, do we have something that shows?
What's that career positions top right? I don't know
Oh,
anything about it, but I just saw it.
No, that's more for employees that have SA and SH job titles, just to assist with the FICA withholding. So that's not it. We do have I thought we had something with funding in it.
Yes, we do. We do have the funding.
I know,
I
I'm
don't
trying to
know
find
which one it is, but we do have the funding stream for the jobs.
Right. I mean,
So she's for a job actually. She's looking for a funding string being charged for a specific employee's payroll.
Oh yeah,
well,
that we do have
yeah,
for the
so
job.
yes, but so we do have this employee job funding tab, but this is funding. So this is in the, let me navigate back to it. So in the current employees and jobs, now this is funding that is set up in HRS at the job level, right? So if I looked at myself on this one, I don't know why it's taking a while.
You have to choose. You have to choose, Mary. That you are in Madison. Business unit is
Yep,
Madison. I get there. It is.
So here's the output. So this is going to reflect the funding string that would be used for me at payroll time if I didn't adjust it at payroll time. But as you're aware, you can, even though this is my current funding, I can override it, I believe, at payroll time. So this is just what's set up for my job currently. So that's where you can find for a specific employee or group of employees, depending upon your parameters. Now, at payroll time, the funding could change. So if you go to the payroll dashboards and run the payroll and deductions report, that's actually a distribution. You should be able to see in this case what the funding that was used at whatever specific payroll. That should be part of the output.
Yeah, and for the most part, it should be the same one that is assigned at the budget. But sometimes, for whatever reason, payroll people could overload on a payroll for someone in a particular pay run. They could say, okay, this month we're gonna pay you from this other place. They could do that.
Right.
Not
So,
that, and it happens sometimes.
right.
Or it could also be a retroactive change, creating a direct retro.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two different funding strings that could be applied here. One with the job level that you can get at with the current employees and jobs, or if you go to a payroll dashboard, these reports should be reflecting the funding that was used for the specific payroll. Does that answer the question?
The bottom, the last one is employee share deductions by fund. They can also see the part of that there.
And
The last one.
Right, and I think that one is let me just run it quick for, choose Green Bay. Type in.
Just a side comment, the funding string is included in the current employees and jobs. Is that correct?
Correct. If I go back to that, and that report is located in the workforce dashboards. And it's right here, current employees and jobs. And then there's a lot of tabs at the top of this one. It would be this tab, employee job funding. Oh, so this one is specifically related to a benefit, Miguel. I mean, I'm not sure. I think this is specifically summary data.
I think it's gonna list everybody.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is just by fund, employer share by fund. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
here it is.
just by fund. So it does list, I mean, for benefits related questions, if they want to see how state group health is being applied by fund and coverage code, you can get an idea of that here.
All right. Lisa, thank you. And I do have another question here about the FA sabbatical report. If we have someone on sabbatical and job data reflects that, how can it show up on the report?
So if we have a report and they're on a leave, you said,
It's
or
like on sabbatical,
they're on
about
sabbatical.
FA sabbatical report.
Okay.
If they're on sabbatical and job data reflects that, how come it doesn't show up on the report?
So if you have an employee who is on sabbatical, this report should be reflecting that. You know, if you're finding anything in the output that isn't what you see in HRS, but should be reflected correctly in our data, it's requested that you create a ticket with your AG so that we can review any discrepancies that you're finding. I mean, I haven't heard any feedback from anyone that this report isn't giving correct data. So I'd need to do some digging into any specific discrepancy that you're seeing. You know, you may want to verify that the begin and end dates of your sabbatical are entered correctly. Perhaps if you looked at that data in HRS, you might see, you know, maybe you're entering in a date that's not within the date of the timeframes of the sabbatical.
Yeah, and this is important because we have had instances where people were on sabbatical, but it was not entered on HRS.
Ah.
I mean, I'm not saying this is the case that she's talking about, but that has happened in the past.
But please create a ticket and then we can research it.
Yeah, and there was also a follow-up question to that as well. If we enter the return from the sabbatical leave in job data, a future row, for example, would that take them off the report?
That's a possibility. For example, if in this report I'm only bringing back current row of an employee and not a future row, that could be something that could be fixed on this report to make sure future rows are being displayed. And that could very well be the issue. But that would be something I'd need to research without going into the actual analysis today and taking a look at it.
Yeah, and later today, before we finish our session here, I'll be giving you some resources where you can reach out to us with specific details or questions as well.
But that's a great question, because there may be times where, you know, it's certainly valid. So their logic in the report needs to be modified.
Yeah, and I would add to that what really helps when people have these kind of issues is they provide specifics. If you can give us ample IDs, dates, really try to reproduce whatever issue people are facing, because sometimes we get like, oh, we are not seeing everybody we are expecting to see. And really helps us to do research. You from things that you were expecting one way, you get in another, but can give us the details like a few ample IDs or dates or department, then we can really try to research much better whatever the issue might be.
Okay, so let's go back. I think we've kind of worked through the workforce dashboards. This next area that I'm going to show you is new. This is sort of high-level summarized data reflecting COVID-19 and furlough cost savings. Let's take a look at the first one. And this is a summarized dashboard. I ran it for all campuses. It runs pretty fast. So this is showing by impact type at the top the different categories of furlough and COVID furlough cost savings, if you will. The top of the page explains everything quite nicely. What negative numbers, mean expenses that we've incurred. Positive numbers mean savings. And then it also gives you some additional explanations with the data you're seeing. So by campus here, you can see estimated cost savings, estimated hours, and head count with grand totals at the right as well as the bottom. There's also employee job details tab that you can see the actual data behind these numbers, behind the head count. So that's the cost savings one. And then there's also one that was developed that shows by funding. And again, I ran it for all campuses here. That's providing by fund head count, estimated savings and cost for each campus. So scrolling down, it's giving it by campus and month, etc. Any questions on this? One thing I forgot to mention on this report, you'll notice in the business unit area, it's kind of highlighted in blue. When you see something like that, as well as when the numbers are available, it just means it's a drill feature. So if I clicked on UW-Madison, it's going to drill into the specific divisions in UW-Madison that you can focus on. And if I click on one of the divisions, it'll take me to the department level. And the department level would take me to the sub-department level. So that's just another feature in UWBI that's included. Oh, and here's where I was talking about before. When you get to something like this, if you click the return button, it'll take you back to your main page that you were originally on.
So Mary, quick question. So how do you run a report to see any employees that have been charged furlough days but are on project or external funding?
Brad, can you think of what we have for that? I think that the reports we show, if they're taking furlough, would show their type of EMPL class, which would be reflected in any of the detail ones we have. Like if you're talking about a project employee. Is that what the question is? More the EMPL class?
Depends on if they define project as in like project as EMPL class or project as in funding.
Ah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it says, but are on project or external funding. Oh, funding string, project grant funding.
Right. So here we only have, I don't think you can identify a project just by the fund. Correct? You would need perhaps the project number, right? Or program code or project number, right? And I don't think we have that.
It's in that subject area.
Is it in that subject area? Okay.
That subject area has the full funding for those.
So yes, now that you say that, I think you're correct. I think if you run the employee details one, that is the one where we're providing the entire funding string. So you would see there a specific project in that column. Because this is employee detail, I'm not going to run this right now, but I believe that's where you'll see it.
And you have the one in the middle you haven't talked yet, which is the one that breaks by fund.
Yes.
No, exactly the same, but
that's just by fund again, right? But I believe this last one, if you run it for the employee details, I'm quite certain we included the entire funding string there, meaning the fund, the project, the program number, and the campus. And if it's not there, and again, I'm not going to run this right now, I can certainly add that column. Brad verified that it does exist.
She said, okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions on these these specific dashboards? Okay, the last one that I won't go into is UW Service Center specific. So these are just dashboards that are run by Service Center staff only. And we also place dashboards in there for testing purposes for them to help us with testing. So basically that's the demo that I was going to provide today. And if anybody has any questions that either Miguel or Brad or I can answer, in addition, to the ones that were already posed, go ahead.
Iman, did you want to go ahead and ask that question? You noted that you had a specific example. And we do have another Q&A time slot here at the end. So maybe what I'll do, oh, here we go. So quick questions on roles. What does this role mean? What does this role allow me to do? It's the UW University EPM HR Query Library Sensitive.
I believe that if I remember correctly, that's a role that is no longer in use, if you will. I think it was one that was eliminated, and it seems to me it was caught. Madison found that they had quite a few people with that role, but it's not really used for UWBI. It might be a role that you would use if you were going to be writing your own content against EPM tables using whatever tool you had at your disposal, Access or Excel.
Yeah,
But I don't believe that's not a role that's used for UWBI.
Yeah, I think people who use Hyperion in the past might have roles that are no longer kind of
right.
The role exists, but it doesn't do anything.
Right. It's not used as far as UWBI is concerned. It might be a role you have in your role catalog, but it would never be something that's used with UWBI. And I think Miguel's right. It might have been a role that was used for Hyperion back when we were using that.
But for the purpose of OBI, there's only those three roles that Mary mentioned at the beginning. Either you have sensitive or non-sensitive access, and then separate from all of that is the benefit. But the benefit is the only subject area that has its own role. But if you get, let's say, sensitive, you get access to everything but benefits.
And those roles are listed on the UWBI website, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I can show those quickly before we finish towards the end here.
Okay, that'd be great.
There's another question. How can I incorporate information on joint faculty appointments into the reports when the faculty member has a primary administrative home in another department?
So are you talking about the faculty relationships?
Joint faculty appointments into a report. So primary administrative home in another department.
Right. So in the tenure and relationships home page or dashboard, you should be able to see all of those. If I'm understanding it correctly, in addition to their tenure status, there's a tab that will reflect the faculty relationships.
Yeah.
So it will show your tenure primary home department, but it will also show the departments on this output that you have additional faculty relationships with. Does that make sense?
So Sue commented that she's talking about joint appointment, not affiliate or joint governance.
Joint appointment. So.
But a joint appointment might mean that you have more than one ample record.
Well, I don't know if that's the question here. So what you can do, if you look at the faculty relationship here, there's a variety of values that you can select here. Joint department is one of them. Is that something, I mean, if you specifically select that column rather than all of them, otherwise the output will show you what this value would be for that specific employee. It
So
would be reflected in the output. Does that help?
she mentioned the goal is to automatically pull it into the HR reports she runs without having to separately pull the information in. So having the obligations to salary and tenure review.
Right. It almost sounds like she's looking for maybe a new report. You know, that would pull all of this in for her without her having to do some manipulation of this existing report. Is that correct? Like perhaps another tab at the top of the screen.
Exactly, she said.
Right. So anything, if you have an idea of a new report that you think would benefit everyone on all the campuses, you know, we certainly, you know, we take requests, and it would be similar to if you found an issue, you would submit a ticket to your AG and indicate the type of report that you want to see with the columns you want to see in it. It's also good, like Miguel mentioned earlier, to give us an example of somebody that would be on this report. Just because when we're developing, it's sometimes easier to have an example of something to make sure we're putting the correct columns and logic in creating the analysis. But do you, right, Miguel, if they are interested in a new report? And then the AGs would determine whether or not that would be great to have for all campuses.
Yeah, I think that's the key. The key is that it has to be something that is useful for everybody. When we put a report here, it's for everybody. And also sometimes we get requests, and I'm not saying this is the case. We want to request because people don't want to run two different reports. But also you don't want to have a report with 300 columns that you can have everything in one report. That sometimes defeats the purpose. But yeah, if there is a particular need that it makes sense, by all means, please submit that and we will review. And if it is determined to do it, usually we work with the AGs, the affinity group, who kind of tell us if yes, this is useful, this makes sense. Because sometimes we get requests for things that are already available some other way that we might not be aware. So they kind of help us to make the decision. But if the decision is made to build it, yeah, by all means, we will work on it.
Perfect. And then another question here, which I know we have a guide on our website under our quick guides, is it possible to set your business unit, division, etc., if you commonly use the same ones?
So there is a feature in OBI, but you've got to be careful when you use it. That's called customization. So let's say I want to, but you would have to do it for each report. So let's say I always want to have my parameters set to UW-Madison, Division A06. And then I would run this report. So you see the output. And then you would go into this gear here at the top. And there's something called Apply Saved or Save Current Customization. So you would hit that. And anytime you open up this tab, it's always going to be whatever parameters you had, it's going to apply it, as well as if you manipulate the output or move columns around or add a column. It's going to always have that customization for you. But beware that if at any point in time you want to go back and use this for something, you know, run it for something else, in order to do that, you are going to have to clear your customization first. Otherwise, your data is not going to be reflected correctly. It's going to always look at your saved customization. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions?
I don't know, Mary, if you want to mention, I don't know if people will benefit, show how to move columns in an output, or
Sure.
how
So let me
to how
just
to do the
quickly, yeah, let me
yeah the
quickly show
pivot.
you. I'll run this one for me again. Okay, so like I said before, with if I'm always going to run this for me, regardless of, and whenever I go in here or a special business unit division, I would save current customization. And then it'll always have that value when I go into it the next time. But if I ever need to run this for something different, I have to clear it first. Okay, so then Miguel was mentioning to show there's a couple different things you can do here in OB. Let's say I want my HR status to be by the next to the EMPL class code. I can move that, and it moves on its own by just highlighting the column and then dragging it to wherever you want to see it. And that's another way you can save this customization. And then we do have, because these reports can get really lengthy, meaning a lot of columns, going to the right. So there's many columns that we have actually added to the reports, but they're not showing here. So if you hover over any column in your output after you've run it, you'll see the four-sided arrow and this gray ellipses at the top. If you right-click, you're going to get another menu. If you choose Include Column, you're going to see a variety of columns that aren't showing in this original output, but you can add them. So if I want to see the location code, it should add it to wherever you've clicked your column, the column after that. And then maybe I want to see not just the code, but the location. So this feature is available on most reports. And if we're not showing you in this include column section, a specific column that you'd like to see that is available within that subject area, we can always add it. Just again, create a ticket and we'll add it. You'll notice there's also an ability to sort columns, whatever column you want on your output. And you can also move columns to prompts. So for example, maybe I want to move the EMPL class code to a prompt at the top. And so now I can just see my classified permanent, my LTE appointments, my student help appointments, etc. So there's you have the ability as a consumer to play around with how you want to see this report output. And then I can move it back to Does that help? Or are there any other questions?
That helps, and I'm actually going to snag the last minutes here to go back to our slides because I think a lot of the resources we have for them might be.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm gonna click stop and then Celia will take over.
Okay. All right. All of you can see my screen here. You can see listed here are our additional resources. So we mentioned our website. Our website looks like this, and I'm just going to drag it over for you. We're going to find HR-specific resources located on our Resources tab. From here, we have a lot of quick guides, so saving that customized dashboard, getting started, navigation, printing, orientation options, sorting data, so like Mary dragging and dropping items. We also do have training, but on here, HRS Getting Started, this is going to help you find a lot of the information you were asking about requesting roles and getting started. The tool tab has a really nice dashboard reports inventory for HRS. So if you click on this, it's going to give you a nice little overview of each report that's currently available. So you can guess what subject area it's in, where it's located, how to find it, to get additional information. It has a nice description, what security role is required. So if you wondering, gosh, I really need to see absence leave taken. What role do I need to see that? And you can see that here as well. And this gets updated frequently. If you look in the URL up here, this one's from July 2nd, 2020. Campus support. So I mentioned like AG, that's our study groups. Each campus has their own support contact, their own BI team that specializes in BI. So you can see all the campuses that help us here. And also with remote, the friendly reminder that you do have to log into VPN to access the tool. So here's that link with getting started. Here's the tools, dashboard reports, inventory. We have IR if that previous system you're used to interactive reporting. Naming conventions. We do have a mapping document as well. And then we also have e-learning modules. So some of the basics like filtering, excluding columns, moving columns, creating different prompts or dashboards or sections for per se. You could go to our UWSAinstructure.com and create an account. Once you create an account there, reach out to your institution support contact and they can get you enrolled in like the basic course. There's the consumer course. There's also an author course. So that's all listed there. And then our general email is uwbi@uwss.wisconsin.edu. And if you have any questions or any suggestions as well that you would not normally submit within like a JIRA or a ticket, feel free to email us here and we'll forward it appropriately to the HR team and so on. And then one last thing here, we do have an upgrade coming up. We're very excited about this late fall. It's called OAS or Oracle Analytics Server, and it's not going to really be visually different to you as a consumer. However, if you're an author, it's going to have a little bit of different functionality behind the scenes. So as an end user, as your view today as a consumer, you might notice some additional filters or visualizations or functionality that might be updated, but current reports are going to look exactly the same as Mary presented today. So the analysis, look, feel, and functionality is going to be very, very similar. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're having a fancy upgrade this fall and that additional resources are going to be posted on our website. We have a great announcement section on our homepage on our website. And that's where we post a lot of updates if we're having system issues or errors or updates. And I quickly crammed that in so we can make it to our 10:30 mark. And I know if there's any additional questions, feel free to add them in the chat box or shoot an email. Looks like a lot of people commenting how helpful it was that they've been looking for reports like these. So today's session was really helpful. That's good. And then I do have an evaluation. I am going to copy and paste so you can tell everyone fabulous Mary and I did today. So in the chat box is the link to our evaluation, and it's very helpful for us to be able to customize and plan for our next upcoming training. So thank you all for coming. I believe we may hang on for a couple more minutes for Q&A. If you don't have any questions, feel free to leave and have a wonderful day.
I guess some people are commenting if we're going to share the slides, and I assume so.
Yeah, we can go ahead and send out a PDF version of the slides. I'll probably send it to the trainers and have them distribute.